data breaches too, right? If you work for the federal government, your information's been breached. If you have ever had anything through Experian, you've been breached at some point in the past. And so if somebody really wants to buy your social security number, it's unfortunately not terribly difficult to do. But obviously storing documents in a safe place so they can't be misplaced, being careful and not using things like public Wi-Fi is a big one to avoid using. And then skimming credit card information is very common these days. And so to the extent you're able to not swipe a credit card, instead use the pay to touch, that can help things along when it comes to avoiding this.
Our guide is titled The 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's The 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and the way to request the guide is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The calendar is turned, and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other, and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical condition, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane.
As you just heard, it's Chuck, Paul, and Tucker with you. And as we head towards, as we reach the middle of the week, continuing to get some rumblings coming out about, what the new administration may or may not do when it relates to trade, tariffs, and things like that. So we'll talk those topics. We got some earnings last night that we'll talk about. We got Jamie Dimon over in Davos talking about all kinds of stuff. I got I got some of my favorite quotes from Jamie Dimon ready to go here. But we'll kick things off with a piece from the Wall Street Journal. It's titled, Trump Pushes for Early Renegotiation of U.S. Trade Deal with Mexico and Canada. The previous version, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, was negotiated during Trump's first term in office. What is he looking to change prior to it being up for statutory review in 2026?
Some of the things that have been mentioned, Chuck, is this idea of putting tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada in order of about 25%. He is rushing to do a full review of the whole agreement. There's about $2 trillion of trade that goes between the U.S. and its continental neighbors of Mexico and Canada. This had significant support when it was initially negotiated back in 2017, 2018 in his first term, where 200 Democrats in the House and Senate backed this agreement largely because they had some strict environmental and labor standards built into this agreement. But now a lot of the focus regarding these renegotiations centers around some perhaps more social issues on the idea of stopping, the movement of fentanyl into the United States, as well as some focus on just revising the trade agreement in general to balance out the trade between the three nations here. Yeah,
the sense that I got in the reading on this is that the chatter about the 25% tariffs is trying to get Mexico and Canada to agree to an early renegotiation on this. Not that they would be included necessarily in this agreement, but I think it's something where, look, I've seen kind of how this goes before, and ultimately, now that we are into the second Trump term, I think my view on what we are seeing as far as how he's announcing potential tariffs and things like that, I think I'm now kind of back to, okay, you kind of take all this with a grain of salt because it's unclear that any of this is actually going to be implemented. And look, that is an about face from where I was a week ago, where the run-up to Monday was, hey, there's going to be tariffs coming into place like right away. You got to be ready for this. Like, this is what we're going to get. And now it's, well, we're going to get these tariffs in, a couple weeks. We're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. And I see all kinds of other things, on executive orders that the Trump administration has signed in the first couple days. And so now it's kind of feeling to me like the tariffs are a little bit more, hey, like, it doesn't feel like they're really serious about implementing them. And I'm not saying that this is good, bad, or anything. It's just my view is adjusting based on the actions that they are taking right now. And so I'm wondering if you are going to see any kind of broad-based tariff implementation, simply because, again, you've seen a flurry of executive actions over the last 2 days now, 2+ days, and none of them are related to anything tariff-related at this point.
Chuck, I posed a similar question to Mike on yesterday's show where I said, do we really even want to get into the weeds of this? And I guess we will a little bit on the auto manufacturer side of things and the potential implications that tariffs would have on Stellantis and Ford and GM, a lot of them that, import a significant amount of vehicles and car parts from some of these countries mentioned. And Mike said, it's so significant, we have to discuss it. And I do agree we have to discuss it, but I would lean on the point that you made earlier, where the reason I mentioned that question is because taking it with a grain of salt. Like, should I really dive into all these numbers on the profit margins of some of these companies and the potential impacts on increased car prices? Perhaps it's worth noting, but again, I do tend to side with you a little bit, and that's why I posed that question as to, it feels like more of a negotiating measure than it is something actually that is going to go into effect, particularly because it's being paired with these two issues on immigration of, Canadian citizens and fentanyl movement that are not economic causes necessarily.
No, I'm on Team Paul here, where I don't know that we can go through the nitty-gritty of like what this would mean in a renegotiation because we need to see how it actually plays out. And I can't go through every iteration of, well, like, here's, what it looks like if this happens, and here's what it looks. Let's see what actually happens, and then we can discuss the impact, or if something's getting closer, if the parties are actually meeting and renegotiating, fine. Like, if these things are coming up as talking points, but otherwise, again, like, I'm not sure that we can go through every permutation of this just because I don't know that it's worth it. It would be equivalent to, you remember back during the Biden term when there was all the noise being made about capital gains tax going up and things like that, and hey, we're going to tax unrealized gains.
Yes.
And I said the same thing at the time. I'm like, guys, like, this actually has to, like, pass. You can't. We're not going to, like, take this too seriously because it actually has to pass. Likewise, okay, this is a trade agreement that was ratified by Congress. It has to actually, go through Congress. And so once they get to the point where they're renegotiating it, fine. Like, I'm happy to go and dig into that. The tariff, threat, look, it could become something, it might not. But right now, we're sitting here on day 3. There have been no new tariffs that have been put in place. And those of you listening before, Monday, you heard me for the last 2 months going, guys, I think he's serious right now. I really believe that you're going to have tariffs early on. Like, this is what they're saying. They're really talking this up. And quite honestly, like, I kind of look like I have egg on my face right now. Like, I feel a little bit dumb that I was, buying into that. And it's not that I was inherently rooting or not rooting for tariffs, but this is where I thought we were going. And again, maybe they're just, it's going to be in a week or so. But I don't know, like, how many executive orders have been signed right now? There's been at least a few dozen. Maybe I haven't been keeping track. Like, there's too many to keep track of. None of them have been, national security related tariffs or, there things along those lines. So I think we'll see where this all goes. The piece to me that is interesting just in terms of the tariffs that are being discussed right now is, hey, you've got, again, this is in the last 2 days. Trump has come out, hey, I'm considering 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And yesterday says, well, I'm considering imposing 10% tariffs on China. Now, we all have our own, like, different views and things along these lines. But in terms of countries that are, abusing their position on trade relative to others, are we in general agreement that China is the bigger offender than Canada and Mexico?
Absolutely.
So I kind of look at this and I'm like, okay, so maybe this is actually a more serious threat because I can't get over the idea of, yes, we're going to impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada that are 2.5 times what we're imposing on China. So I'm kind of poo-pooing whether the Canada and Mexico stuff will happen. This I actually think is more legit, and I hope I don't have egg on my face again because if I do on this, like, quite honestly, I'm just gonna be like, I don't know anymore. Like, if this doesn't end up happening, then I'm just gonna go, well, I don't know because I just don't know what to say then, right? Like, how do we report on something that keeps not happening if that's the case?
And these would be in addition to the tariffs that are already in place on about $300 billion of goods that were instituted during the first Trump administration. And then Biden went in and also assessed more tariffs on EVs, solar cells, semiconductors, and advanced batteries during his term. So imports and tariffs on Chinese goods, that has been something that has bipartisan support in Washington, D.C., and something that you do feel like would be a little bit more realistic in terms of it being instituted. The question will always be with these tariffs, are they broad-based? Are they specific to some of those items that I mentioned? Are they just a follow-up on those? Those are all things that are still up for consideration and debate.
Yes. So this is where we stand right now on tariffs. Nothing's been imposed yet. We've got a couple sets that are being, bandied about with February 1 as the potential imposition date. So the good news, I guess, I can't believe I have to say this because I thought we'd get to Monday and be like, we don't have to speculate anymore, but we're still speculating here on Wednesday a little bit.
February 1st, Chuck, we'll be all set. Don't worry about it.
The good news is next Saturday, we'll know whether these are going into place or not. And I just, again, if we keep, kind of passing these deadlines, I just don't know how I can realistically talk about it without seeming dumb if these things don't happen. So if anyone has any ideas as to how I can do that, please text us at 617-362-1385. I'm interested in trying to learn how to be a better radio host talking about these things. But this is where we stand right now. No new tariffs imposed to this point, but potentially some chatter on this stuff. What we're going to talk about when we come back, one of the executive orders that the Trump administration did push through relates specifically to EV subsidies. And so we'll talk about what he did and what the reality on the ground is for that industry after this.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we're covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Phishing scams, ransomware attacks, and identity theft are three very common fraudulent schemes that can cause significant damage to your financial well-being. Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. And as technology continues to evolve, it's even more important for you to know how to protect yourself from being a victim of this kind of serious activity. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and it's designed to help you understand ways to uncover potential hacks to your most important accounts. These kind of attacks are becoming more complex, so it's critical that you know what to look for before clicking on an email or answering a number you don't recognize. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new free guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. And if you act now, you can take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and get a $250 per person airline credit when you book a minimum 5-night stay at participating hotels. Go to visitusvi.com and use code VIBE2025 to reserve your trip today. Take your next vacation to St. Croix in America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com and use code VIBE2025 to book your trip. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
So, one of the executive orders that President Trump has issued is one titled Unleashing American Energy. And what it specifies in here is a pause on the disbursement of funds allocated by Congress as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically the tax credits of up to $7,500 for new buyers of new EVs, and $4,000 to buyers of used EVs. Also included in here was some funding for charging stations along highways, and then this order also repeals what was admittedly a very dumb executive order calling for the U.S. to be 50% EVs by 2030, which, again, you can't do that by executive order. So if you issue an executive order undoing an executive order that did nothing, what have we really done? I don't know, other than use some paper. But the real question on this is, look, at the time of the signing of the Inflation Reduction Act, Mark Vendetti and I had a number of conversations about this where we said, look, is a $7,500 tax credit for EVs the best way to, do what you want to do? Like, do we know that EVs are going to be the best thing for the environment in the long run? How do you know that you're not disadvantaging other technologies that you might actually want? Mike also raised the point a number of times of, hey, we can understand, wanting to build semiconductors in the U.S. because of national security concerns. Why do you need to build EVs here? Like, ultimately, if you can't buy them from American manufacturers, is that a real problem? You still have alternatives that you can buy, that are manufactured domestically. Like, we weren't really sure if this was the best way to go about it. Having said that, the funds were allocated through a legislative act of Congress, and historical precedent is pretty strong in saying, hey, the president can't just, the process is called impoundment. You can't just impound funds that you don't want to spend. And so this is likely going to be something that gets to the Supreme Court in the next few months. And we're going to find out one way or another whether that still holds up as an argument, because the general legislative, the general theory in terms of, hey, why don't you want presidents to be able to impound funds? Number one, Congress controls the power of the purse. So if they say allocate funds in X, Y, or Z, you don't want the president to come in and be like, no, I'm just not going to spend the funds Congress allocated. That's kind of disregarding the will of the people because of how money is actually allocated through the U.S., governmental system. And so I think this is something where it's going to face all kinds of challenges. The historical precedent would say that this executive order probably gets struck down, but you never know. There certainly is the possibility that the current Supreme Court sees things differently. But this is an area where the president is clearly coming out and saying, look, I don't want this money to be spent here. And I do wonder, and part of me, looks at this and says, hey, are there enough votes out there to maybe overturn some of these provisions? Because if you're talking about, hey, we want to do things to, put additional tax cuts in place, but find ways to make the budget, a little bit more balanced, do you try to claw back some of the subsidies via legislative action? That's something that I think could make a ton of sense and potentially gives you a clear path because Congress is explicitly allowed to do just that.
Right, and to kind of go further on the point in terms of the potential for, bipartisan approval on this, you do have a lot of the money that's flown into Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, where Republicans dominate local politics. So
this is part of the problem in repealing it is,
do you have the votes?
Congress people don't like to give up money going to their own districts.
Exactly. So that makes it challenging. I do wonder on just the broader question in general, the investment in the infrastructure for electric vehicles, is that the best way to spend our capital? I'm always more of a proponent of private markets just kind of figuring it out by trying to drive down costs, and that will usually lead to adoption. But I guess the argument can be made it's extremely costly to build out the infrastructure, so perhaps government assistance is needed to make these vehicles more of a mass adoption. I don't know. It's a question that is up for debate. Certainly what you're seeing with China basically subsidizing the EV industry in general, that's way too far reaching, but you hope that just the market forces would really dictate this change rather than the government.
Another piece from the Wall Street Journal, tech leaders pledge up to $500 billion in AI investment in the United States. So it's OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank that are behind this. They're calling it Stargate is the joint venture. Either of you big fans of the Stargate movie?
No.
Not aware of it.
No? You're not aware of it?
I thought it was a show. I didn't know it was a movie.
It was a movie before the show. So Stargate was the movie that came out in 1994. I believe it was Roland Emmerich who directed it. Kurt Russell, James Spader were in it. And then it Stargate SG-1 was the series, which I'll admit I have not watched. But the movie is like good mid-90s, kind of weird sci-fi. Like, it turns out the pyramids were built by aliens, and there's, something that takes you to their alien world, blah, blah, blah. Stargate. In any case, here's my quick view on this proposed investment. First, SoftBank is led by Masayoshi Son, who is somewhat charlatanic. He's kind of a charlatan. Like, he was one of the big backers of WeWork back in the first Trump term, and WeWork, as we know, kind of went splat, and SoftBank didn't really, look too good after that. And they kind of go through these boom-bust cycles where he throws a bunch of money at stuff, and recently, a lot of it hasn't really worked out particularly well.
Worked out real well.
Arm did, but, it's something where Son's credibility, I think, is kind of iffy, and Altman, who runs OpenAI, is, he's proposed some similarly crazy things recently, so we'll see what happens. Quick break. Wall Street Watch and Ask Todd are next.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
This is Tucker Silva, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And we're talking about last-minute nursing home lessons that can help save your assets. What can be done last minute to save your home and your liquid assets when one spouse is entering the nursing home?
So with a married couple, you do have more options than as a single person, but with a married couple, your home is not at risk because the community spouse living in the home is allowed to keep the home. Doesn't matter the value, as long as they're living there, it's not countable and non-lienable. They also give the healthy spouse about $135,000 to keep. It's not a lot when you think of the big picture, but all the rest of the money would be at risk. But at least a quick last-minute way of protecting all those other dollars, all over and above that $135,000, would be to basically transfer the assets, those excess assets, to the community spouse, which, by the way, is not a disqualifying transfer, so no 5-year waiting period. And then once that community spouse gets those assets, depending on their age, they can buy what is known as a Medicaid qualifying annuity. These are special annuities. They convert the excess assets into an income stream, and then it's no longer an asset, keeping the community spouse over assets. Then the community spouse and the sick spouse are under assets, and they're eligible for Medicaid.
Cushing & Dolan has written a brand new guide, especially for those of you who have put off doing your planning and are now faced with a last-minute nursing home situation. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. 866-848-5699. Or if you prefer, you can simply go to their website, legalexchangeshow.com, and request it there.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are extending their gains with the S&P 500 approaching a new all-time high as traders react to impressive fourth quarter earnings from Netflix, Procter & Gamble, and others. Right now, the Dow up by 88 points, S&P 500 is up over 0.2%, and the NASDAQ is up over 1.33% or 267 points. Russell 2000 is flat, dipping into negative territory. 10-year Treasury yield up by 1 basis point at 4.58%, and crude oil off about 0.33%, trading at $75.56 a barrel. Netflix shares surging by 12% after the streaming giant beat on top and bottom lines in the fourth quarter. Netflix added nearly 19 million subscribers in the quarter and also raised its 2025 revenue forecast. Furthermore, the company said it plans to raise U.S. prices across the board. Meanwhile, Procter & Gamble reported quarterly earnings and revenue that beat street forecasts, where the consumer products company cited growing demand for household staples. That stock up over 2%. Elsewhere, Oracle up nearly 7% after President Trump announced Project Stargate yesterday, which is a joint venture with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank to invest up to $500 billion in U.S. AI infrastructure. Johnson & Johnson down by 3% after the drug maker narrowly beat fourth quarter expectations, driven by strong sales of its cancer treatment. However, the company's sales forecast for this year was slightly lower than analysts were anticipating. And United Airlines projected stronger profit this year due to robust demand for premium and international travel. However, that stock is actually down by about 0.5%. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutzke is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutzke.
As promised, Todd Lutzke is with us now for Ask Todd. This is your chance to ask Todd your estate planning questions. Studio line is open at 888-205-2263, so get dialing. I know it's a new year, so this is your chance to ask Todd your questions to get your estate plan squared away in 2025. Again, 888-205-2263. Usually have time for 2 or 3 questions. So get dialing to make sure that you are in the front of the line. Again, that number is 888-205-2263. Mr. Lutzke, how are you doing today?
I am great. How you been?
A little confused.
Yeah, it happens.
Was out yesterday doing a little bit of running, jogging on the track.
Uh-huh.
And I saw that there was a clam over on the side of it.
A clam?
Pulled a muscle.
Yeah, that happens.
Real problem.
It is a problem.
Real problem in this weather. Todd, I want to talk to you a little bit about the age at which it's appropriate to consider long-term care planning and trying to protect assets from the cost of long-term care. Specifically, is there ever an age that someone gets to where you say, hey, like you might be too old to consider this kind of planning? Is that a thing?
I think we should talk about the high end and the low end. Let's do that.
Sure.
So on the low end, right, when clients come in and they wonder, what do I want to do estate planning, but, then our job is to guide them, as to what kind of estate plan makes sense. And so we'll generally, age is one factor that we look at. So if you come in and and this is just my own number, by the way, there's no book telling us this, 60 and up, I'm going to ask. 60 and up, I'm probably going to say, are we concerned about the future and potential long-term care planning? Because we all know it takes 5 years to protect it. So if I can have this in my rearview mirror by 65 or by 70, I want to do that. If you come in and you are, 50, but you tell me, you know what, I got, diagnosed with Parkinson's, or I have, MS or something that might affect mobility, well, then you might want to get the clock started sooner rather than later. But those are, the exceptions to the rule. To your point, what about the other end? Well, I hate to put a cap on the other end because, I'm always betting on you living, not on you dying. So
it's nice of you.
Yeah, that's what I do. So, if you came into me and you're 85 and you say, geez, I want to start my Medicaid clock running, well, you know what? That's okay. I'm going to say do it. I hope you make 90. And if you do, then and something happens then, you'll be protected, and that's important. Plus, there's never a downside to having the clock running, right? If you have the clock running and somebody gets sick, 4 years into the clock, well, I might want to just private pay for 1 year. If I can guarantee the protection of the, dollars or assets that I've transferred, and I only have to pay one year, say $110,000, $120,000, I might do that if I'm protecting $500,000 or $1 million home or whatever it is I've done planning for.
Sure.
Makes sense. So getting the clock running never hurts. And, of course, I'll share with you the story that I did do. A 94, 95-year-old came in, and they needed trust planning anyway, just from an estate planning standpoint. So I said, well, then why not just make them irrevocable, and then you get the best of both worlds. Sure enough, it worked, and They didn't get sick until they beat the 5-year clock. So never hurts to get it done. I guess there's not an age, that's too old to do the planning. How's that?
There you go. Talking with Todd Lutzke from Cushing and Dolan. Still got a little bit of room on the phone lines. I know we already got a couple people that called in. But, again, 888-205-2263 is the number. Again, 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break right now, but then it is your calls with Todd right after this. That number one more time is 888-205-2263.
Ask Todd with Todd Lutzke every Wednesday at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay, so now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025. Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Phishing scams, ransomware attacks, and identity theft are three very common fraudulent schemes that can cause significant damage to your financial well-being. Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. And as technology continues to evolve, it's even more important for you to know how to protect yourself from being a victim of this kind of serious activity. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and it's designed to help you understand ways to uncover potential hacks to your most important accounts. These kind of attacks are becoming more complex, so it's critical that you know what to look for before clicking on an email or answering a number you don't recognize. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new free guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
You're listening to Ask Todd with Todd Lutzke on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
get right to your calls with Todd Lutzke here. First in the queue is Philip on Cape Cod. Philip, what's your question for Todd?
Todd, you did an irrevocable trust for me about 6 years ago. I have rental property. If I sell the rental property, can I take some of that money out? Because I've not enjoyed any of the rental income to this date.
Well, let me ask you why you have not enjoyed the rental income first and foremost.
Well, at this point, I thought it'd be better just to keep it in the trust in case we needed some money for repairs on the property.
Okay, so first and foremost, and I get it, not everybody remembers everything you talk about in meetings, but the trust is an income-only trust, and all the rent belongs to you every single year. And you've been picking it up, I'm sure, on your income tax return, and it belongs to you and your family. So that rent is yours. Now, having said that, my next comment would be, how long, you said 6 years you've been renting this, right?
Well, we've been renting it longer, but it's been in the trust since we met with you,
and
over 6 years.
Right. So the good news is that in our trust we have language that says all the income shall be distributed to you. But I get it. Some people don't physically take the income out and put it into your personal bank account, although you're certainly entitled to it. And so we have language in the trust that says that doesn't go to principal if you don't take it. It doesn't revert to principal. It's basically an account receivable. Okay? So if you were earning, if this thing generated, $60,000 a year in rent, okay, then you have 6 years of $60,000 a year, so 60 times 6, of technically an account receivable. Now, I get it. You might have used some of the money to pay for real estate taxes or some upkeep or maintenance. I get it. All that money might not be there. But you're getting the drill, right? You're getting the feel. So you need to find out how much income, and you can just look on your tax returns. It'll be there. Find out how much income got deposited in that trust over 6 years. And that's one big account receivable, right? So 6 times 6 is $360,000 of money. So you're allowed to take that because it's still income. It's not considered principal. So that's how I would go about taking it out. How much you looking to take out?
Believe it or not, I'm like $100,000 will get me over the hump.
All right. So there you go. I think even before you go to sell it, there's probably money sitting in that trust bank account, correct?
Yeah, yes, there is, sir.
Yeah, so probably a lot of money because you haven't taken it. So I suspect that you now have the ability that if you did that, and I said there's $360,000 of income, certainly $100 is not going to be a problem to take out. And that's how I would go about it. It is an account receivable for you. Then when you sell the property, again, it's completely a grantor trust, so you have the ability to sell it. It's flexible. You're going to have no adverse income tax consequences, although I recommend you use our firm to help you with the closing so that you don't screw up the 5-year waiting period, which you will not, right, as long as the money gets put in the trust. And therefore, that money you probably can just leave there and continue to be protected and not have to worry about grabbing the principal because we figured out how to do it. So hopefully that helps a little, and you can see, and everybody can see, the flexibility built in to these irrevocable trusts. So hopefully that's helpful, Philip. Folks, sometimes people that do their planning, like Philip, and others who don't, find themselves faced with nursing home care nevertheless. And so for either group, whether you've done your planning or not, if you find yourself faced with a nursing home, there's going to be assets outside the trust if you've done your planning that are at risk. And there's going to be folks who didn't do their planning and all their assets are at risk. Get this guide. It's getting close to the end of the month. Long-term care planning for procrastinators, and it will teach you how to make countable assets non-countable last minute. And each asset is differently treated for married versus single people, whether it's a home, a rental, or money itself. So get the guide, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com. So don't just write the check to the nursing home, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
Todd, we got another caller for you here. Let's go to Gail in Worcester. Gail, you are on with Todd Lutzke.
Hi, Todd. I have a question. I understand that in the state of Massachusetts, a TOD for real estate is not valid. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't realize. So, folks, what you need to understand about a TOD is it's a transfer on death, and you normally see that at the bank account level. Not even so much at an investment account level. You see it at a bank account level where it's similar to a designated beneficiary on a bank account that says, when I die, I transfer this account on death to, and you put a name down. But that is for a bank account and perhaps an investment account, but not that I'm aware of anyway for real estate. So to avoid the probate on the real estate, whereas a TOD will avoid the probate on a bank account, for real estate, I think you need to really do some trust planning and figure out how best to avoid the probate, protect the asset, and get it to your family. So hopefully that was helpful.
Todd, I got one more for you here. Let's go to Jim in Haverhill. Jim, you are on with Todd Lutzke. What's your question?
Hi, how you doing, gentlemen? My question is pretty simple. Can you put a house that either has a mortgage on it or maybe even a house that has a reverse mortgage on it into a trust?
Well, what kind of trust? Revocable or irrevocable?
Either one. Probably the irrevocable. Seems like you lean towards those more than the revocable.
Well, and I think it's fair that you would say that. I don't want to say that I lean towards one or the other. It's strictly a function of what makes sense for the particular client and their situation. So we can try to address both if we have the time. But, revocable trusts are less problematic when you're transferring encumbered property because pretty much you're still the owner, right? And so you don't have to worry about triggering a due on sale clause. So you could transfer it in. And even refinancing inside a revocable trust. I mean, banks sometimes give you a little headache, but ultimately what will happen is the bank might say, okay, take the house out of the revocable trust, put it in your name, get the refinancing done, and then put the house back in the revocable trust, and that's fine. They don't care. So from a revocable trust standpoint with a mortgage on it, I don't see any issues. The irrevocable trust, if it's encumbered property, then yes, you have to take a couple of steps. So if it's your primary residence, what we do, and we talk about life estates a lot, we've talked about them over the years. A life estate is something I use infrequently, but would use it, and I'm going to say to really everyone else, planners and the like, should use it when you're transferring an encumbered primary residence to an irrevocable trust. Okay, so if you do that, if you don't do that, you don't reserve the life estate and put the remainder interest into the irrevocable trust, you could, if the bank ever checked, trigger the due on sale clause. Okay, unlikely the banks ever check on these transfers as long as you pay, but nevertheless, it's an issue. So there's also the Garn-St. Germain Act that says you might not trigger it, but the easier thing to do is say, you know what? If I reserve a life estate in the deed, then I have the right to live there the rest of my life, the right to collect the income, and the right to pay the bills, hooray. So that's the nugget of ownership that I kept means I cannot trigger the due on sale clause, okay? So I cannot trigger it, and I can keep my existing mortgage by transferring it to the trust and reserving a life estate, and I don't have to worry about it. Now, the issue that becomes with that is, well, you can keep your existing mortgage. You're not likely going to be able to refinance it, right? If you try to refinance it, the bank is likely going to make you take the whole thing out of the trust and reset the 5-year waiting period. Now, I can tell you that a lot of my clients that have done this, of course, in the past, have what? Very low rates. And today, rates are really high. So, one, we don't want to trigger the due on sale clause, so we reserve a life estate. And two, they're really not going to be refinancing. So, and mostly, I can tell you, folks, that people that do irrevocable trust planning don't have mortgages on it. But we can solve that problem for you. And if it happened to be on a rental property, you just got to keep a 99-year lease. I can explain that in detail, and that will prevent the triggering. So, long-winded answer. Sorry for that, but I hope it's addressed the question.
Mr. Lutzke, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutzke has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Still a bunch coming in hour 2 of the Financial Exchange. We're going to kick things off talking about Netflix then. They reported earnings after the bell, first major earnings release of the quarter for a non-bank, so we'll tell you how they did. We've also got some airline earnings. We'll talk mortgage rates. And then also, we're going to talk a little bit about the national deficit and how it could potentially be something that hamstrings the president's agenda when it comes to the fiscal side of the coin. All that and a whole bunch more coming up in hour 2. Stick around. We're back in a few.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Tucker Silva, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange legal quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about last-minute nursing home lessons that can help save your assets. Todd, more and more people are providing in-home care for their loved ones. Is there anything a care provider can do that would be beneficial to them or the family?
So if you're already providing care for an individual at home, and more people, as you said, are in fact doing that, the best thing to do is to set up a personal care contract. contract, right? A personal care contract is something that allows you to get paid by your family member, and as long as you report it on your income tax return and prepare a personal care contract, make sure you get an elder law lawyer to help you prepare that contract because it's got to be done right. But if you do those two things, get the contract and provide the care and put the income on your income tax return, the transfers are non-disqualifying transfers. So even if you don't make the 5 years, those dollars that you're moving will not need to be returned and they will be protected. Also, while you're doing that, set up the trust and get the 5-year clock started. Put some assets in because you just never know if you're going to make it or not, and you would always want to have that 5-year clock running to protect your assets.
Cushing & Dolan has written a brand new guide especially for those of you who have put off doing your planning and are now faced with a last-minute nursing home situation. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. You can call 866-848-5699, or you can simply request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. Once again, simply call 866-848-5699, or get it from their website at legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
With digital technology continuously evolving, hackers are coming up with incredibly elaborate schemes to commit fraud, which could put your financial well-being at risk. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and in today's landscape, it's critically important that you beware of the potential dangers that exist. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and its purpose is to help you understand what steps you can take to avoid becoming a victim. Whether it's identity theft, inheritance scams, or Ponzi schemes, this guide can educate you about these risks, giving you the chance to make any necessary changes to your overall financial strategy. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That number once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams, your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Paul Lane.
Hour 2 here on the Financial Exchange. Chuck, Paul, Tucker with you. We got stocks mostly up, but it's tech that is kind of leading them. Actually, when you take a look at the broad market as a whole, the S&P 500's kind of split. It's really just that tech is leading the way here. But you've got the Dow up 53 points, about 0.1%. S&P is up 40 points, about 0.2%. NASDAQ, which is tech-heavy, up about 1.25%, 248 points. And the Russell 2000, small-cap companies, actually down about 0.5 percentage point at the moment. When we take a look at what is going on in bond world, 10-year U.S. Treasury up 2.3 basis points to 4.597%. Has been sliding down a little bit in terms of yields in the last couple of weeks, really week or so. But this finding some stability maybe around that 4.6 range. We take a look at oil, where West Texas Intermediate is at $75.88 a barrel right now, up 5 cents on the day. AAA national average for gas prices up very, very modestly at $3.12 and 0.9 cents, up 0.3 cents from yesterday. And we've got gold today, now up $12.30 an ounce to $27.71 and 50 cents, continuing its recent strong run at this point. Anything else catching your eye, Paul, before we go on to the thing that really caught my eye?
Netflix is catching my eye.
Man, I got to tell you, these guys are just absolutely cranking.
They really
right
are.
now. And I know that they're still just a media company, and I say just a media company. I feel like it's kind of okay to be skeptical of, I don't know, just media companies in general and where their earnings are going to go. And certainly streaming has been kind of a mixed bag for different, legacy media companies. But for Netflix, this is a freaking monster quarter. They are just knocking the cover off the ball. Stock's up 12% on the news. And basically, they added 18.9 million subscribers during the quarter. That was almost double the number that was expected. And it is a new quarterly record for additions of new subscribers.
And think about that, Chuck. When we were in the midst of COVID and we're all stuck in our house with nowhere to go, they beat those numbers. They did about 16 million of new subscribers in that quarter, which there couldn't have been more pent-up demand for their service. To do 19 million in this most recent quarter, like you said, it's just a blowout number. Really just tremendous.
What I'm trying to figure out is why now, and specifically why Q4? Netflix pointed to, hey, Squid Game Season 2 came out, but, okay, like, are there really that many people who weren't on Netflix before who are like, I got to catch Season 2 of a show that I wasn't subscribed to for Season 1? That doesn't really do it for me. They're also pointing to the action thriller Carry On. Have either of you watched this movie on Netflix?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
It's fine. It's like B-action movie. Like it's fine. But okay, like were there a ton of people signing up to watch that? I don't really know. So the WWE contract didn't start until Q1. Mm-hmm. January was the first one there. So it's not like you were like, hey, let me sign up for this in December just to get the feel of it before then. They did have those NFL games. Maybe that's it, but...
in their earnings report, they were saying that none of those isolated events, whether it be Tyson versus Paul, the fight that had 60 million streams, the NFL games, they seem to be inclined to say that none of these individual events really drove a lot of additions from new subscribers. It seems like statistically 55% of the signups in countries where the ad tier division was available, that's where the subscriptions were coming from. So of all new subscriptions where ad tier was available, 55% of them were for that lower ad tier price that was previously $6.99 a month, now will be marked up to $7.99 a month. So it does seem like the growth is coming from that side of the business, the ad tier one, getting more people on the platform at a lower price point.
Netflix also saying this is going to be the last quarter that they disclose quarterly subscriber numbers that they had announced, I think, earlier last year.
This has been long telegraphed.
Yeah.
They've had really volatile quarterly results in terms of their stock fluctuations. 8 out of the last 16 quarters, they've seen fluctuations up 10% or more, or down 10% or more. They feel they didn't come out and say this, but there's speculation that some of that subscriber growth numbers leads to that volatility. They now sit at 302 million subscribers. There's also the contrarian argument you could make that they're really not going to see how much more subscriber growth can you really drive. And similar, the iPhone,
Sure.
They did this back in 2018 or 2019 where you get so much significant market share that it's almost doing your company a disservice to try and beat 19 million new subscribers in a given quarter.
Yeah, that's fair. So the question for Netflix from here is not can they keep up that kind of growth, because the answer is no. They're not going to grow their subscriptions by 6% every quarter forever. It's not possible. But how quickly, we're not going to know how quickly they're growing them, but what's the pace of growth that they continue to see, and can they figure out ways to boost up the ad revenue on those ad tiers, and what's the price point at which people finally say, no, I'm not subscribing to this anymore? Because right now you've got a company that is worth $412 billion with 300... What'd you say it was, like 301 million?
302 million.
Okay. So if you do the math out on this and you look at it, you say, okay, so they're worth, $412 billion. They've got, 302 million subscribers. You're basically telling me that the company is being valued at about $1,300 per subscriber. That, again, I know this is not like a normal metric, but this is just how I'm thinking about this. So if you are going to actually, if you're looking at this from just a pure fundamental standpoint, you say, okay, you're valued at that much. If I wanted to invest in your company, how long is it going to take for you to pay me back? Given that the average subscriber is paying, $15 a month, something like that?
The premium, they just bumped up to $25 a month.
But the average one's probably like 15-ish.
Yeah, I think closer to 20. I got to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's $180 a year, call it. So in order to generate $1,300 of revenue, not profit, you're saying, okay, it's going to take me 7 years just to generate that in revenue. How hard is it to pay that back? And this gets into your actual PEs and price to sales ratio, where the company right now, it's 54 times earnings, it's 11 times sales, it's 40 times forward earnings, it's 9.5 times forward sales. Steeply priced company. If you keep delivering quarters like this, here's the secret, it doesn't matter. Because that's what Amazon did for about 15 years, is everyone kept saying, oh, Amazon's expensive. And Amazon kept saying, you're buying more crap on my website. I don't care how expensive I am. Here's the earnings. Not earnings, but here's the revenue growth, because everyone's buying stuff here. If Netflix continues on the path that Amazon, went down, then this is all completely justified. It's probably a tough putt for them to do that. And so you kind of look at this and you go, all right, are we kind of getting close to, not the peak in terms of price, but the peak excitement about the company?
It's a tough putt for them to do it because unlike Amazon had a profit spigot that they were able to really build on, which was AWS. They were able to operate their retail business that we're so familiar with in terms of the delivery trucks and getting your shampoo and deodorant, deliver within a couple hours of the next day, because they had this other wing of profitability that were operating at margins, upwards of 25 or 30% compared to the, couple percent that you operate on with the Amazon Prime. Netflix doesn't really necessarily have that other lever to go to that's really high margin. I guess you could make the argument that the ad tier business is something that, they could build out because they can just continue to disperse it among it doesn't cost Netflix more to have 400 million subscribers. Their platform is what it is. They have done a great job with that, where their operating margins were about 19% 5 years ago. They now sit at close to 30%. So continuing to build on those operating margins would be great. But to your point, Chuck, tough putt in the sense that I don't really know if there's a real fulcrum to drive those operating margins further. Otherwise, you got to drive up the revenue side, and that may be challenging as well when you have 302 million subscribers.
Let's take a quick break here. When we return, we got trivia, and then we're talking United and their earnings release, and also what's going on with mortgage rates.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Phishing scams, ransomware attacks, and identity theft are 3 very common fraudulent schemes that can cause significant damage to your financial well-being. Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group. And as technology continues to evolve, it's even more important for you to know how to protect yourself from being a victim of this kind of serious activity. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and it's designed to help you understand ways to uncover potential hacks to your most important accounts. These kind of attacks are becoming more complex, so it's critical that you know what to look for before clicking on an email or answering a number you don't recognize. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new free guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange. Today is Caitlin Clark's 23rd birthday. The basketball star had a tremendous collegiate career before becoming the biggest star in WNBA history. Trivia question today: which college did Caitlin Clark play basketball for? Once again, which college did Caitlin Clark play basketball for? Be the 9th person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the 9th correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will get that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
United continuing the trend of strong airline earnings. They guided towards higher profits for the current quarter as well. And so it continues to be something where Americans are spending a bunch of money on air travel, and that trend is not going anywhere based on what the airlines are telling us.
Yeah, this has been echoed by Delta as well. They came out with a bullish outlook for Q1, and they're seeing just a better balance in terms of the travel demand that you were speaking of, as well as the flying routes that they have currently. This is the first time that United has turned a profit since Q1 of 2019, and overseas travel accounted for about 20% of their revenue. So there still continues to be a significant demand for Americans to travel internationally and domestically as well, backed by some earnings numbers. United Airlines was up a whopping 135% last year, its stock, and you have Delta and Southwest moving in positive direction this morning as well in the news on United Airlines.
Let's talk a little bit about mortgage rates. I think this is a juicy topic given that we are now about 3 weeks away from the Super Bowl, which is the unofficial start of the spring housing season these days. And according to Mortgage News Daily, the national average for 30-year fixed-rate mortgages is at 7.08%, so still got a 7 in the first digit there. And, you know, this is one where if you go back a year ago and say, hey, what did things look like back at this time in 2024? National average was at 6.87. It rose as high as 7.38 in mid-April. And this was one of the things that kind of precipitated a slowdown in some economic data that we got over the summer, was rates moved up and the economy slowed. Same thing has happened over the last couple months here, and we're seeing some signs that housing demand is weakening simply because people can't afford to buy homes at these rates, these insurance premiums, and these prices. Like, something has to give there, and it's probably not going to be insurance premiums given what we've seen in California and Florida over the last 6 months. So it's got to either be rates or prices, and the case for interest rates moving down is, hey, you've got to have either a slowdown in economic activity or some convincingly better data on inflation. And right now the inflation data is kind of just floating around, 2.5% to 3%. And the economic data has continued to be good for the last, few months now. And so how do you get to lower mortgage rates if you're not having those things happen? So I suspect, unfortunately, you're probably stuck in like the 6.75 to 7.25 range on mortgages for the spring housing season, unless you see either some kind of collapse to the downside in the U.S. economy, which doesn't really look like it's showing up right now. It doesn't look likely at the moment. Or unless you see some, return to the upside on inflation, in which case rates are going higher, which is not great. But if you're a home buyer heading into this spring housing season, I think ultimately you're going to find that your affordability is really stretched, and at least in the Northeast, inventory is still low enough that you're not really seeing much pricing pressure to the downside.
Right.
If you do live in other parts of the country, we are seeing in Florida and places like Austin, Texas, and parts of Georgia, you're seeing downward price pressures because there's inventory that now is, quite high, and so the market just can't clear at those prices. But again, not everyone is living in Florida or Georgia or Tennessee, or it's the Northeast does not have enough inventory still, and so there's not enough pressure to push prices down. So it's just, hey, this is what it is.
There's a number of factors working against you. You mentioned a couple of them. Part of this 30-year fixed mortgage cresting over 7% again is tethered right to the U.S. 10-year Treasury, which was about 3.6% back in September, got up as high as close to about 4.8%, but now sits around 4.5 or 4.6. You've got two factors going here where, one, the premium, basically the spread between the U.S. 10-year Treasury and 30-year fixed mortgage rates, it's at a higher level than it's been in the past. From 1990 to 2019, there was about a 1.7% differential between the U.S. 10-year Treasury and the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate. That spread now sits at 2.4% between the U.S. 10-year Treasury and where we sit on the 30-year fixed mortgage side of things. So with that elevated premium, limited inventory, as you mentioned, it just doesn't seem like there is really any significant positive catalyst for the housing market come the spring here.
And look, there still is some time for some potential improvement. But I had someone ask me the other day. They were looking at potentially buying a place this spring, and they're like, "Do you think mortgage rates are going to get back down in the 5s?" And Mike and I have talked about this before, but the only path I see to rates down in the 5s is if the U.S. goes in recession.
Yes.
And if the U.S. goes in recession, there's no guarantee that person who's looking for the home hasn't lost a job and now can't buy the new home that they thought they were going to get, at lower rates. But, yeah, mortgage rates back in the 5s, just a tough putt to get there. I think a lot would have to go wrong with the U.S. economically to the point where, yeah, you're probably in recession if you're seeing mortgage rates back in the 5s for any extended period of time. Maybe you could get there if, things went just right, like the economy slowed but not quite into recession. But I don't think you really want to play chicken with recession. It's not something to sneeze at and just be like, oh, well, maybe we can escape.
Yeah, you mean you'd be talking about the U.S. 10-year Treasury. I was just looking at it'd have to be down around 2.5% or something like that to see that significant of a fall to get to the 5% level. If we're talking,
I meant in the 5s, not.
Oh, not just 5 flat.
Yeah,
yeah, but whatever. Even if it was at 3.5, it's a pretty significant drop.
You got a lot of work to do to get there.
Off of a policy initiatives that are likely going to be adding to the U.S. debt.
So that's what we've got going on with mortgage rates at the moment. Taking an updated look at markets, Dow's now up 89 points, so stretching its legs a little bit. The S&P also up 44 points, and NASDAQ up 272. So all three major U.S. indices seeing some good positive movement as we continue through the week here. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to get to a few comments from Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, is out in Davos at an event that I'm never invited to. And quite honestly, I don't know if I'd really have... I bet I'd have a good time there. It looks very picturesque, and I'm sure the drinks are great.
Definitely.
Especially at altitude.
It's beautiful out there.
It's wonderful. Let's take a quick break, and we'll talk Jamie Dimon's comments after this.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our guide this month is the 7 common financial frauds and scams. Mike, one of the ways that fraudsters potentially get your information is through something called a phishing, with a PH, scam. What is a phishing scam?
Yeah, again, a misconception here from a lot of folks. When they think about getting hacked, it's, some cyber criminal that's gaining access through a back door to your information. Usually that's not what happens to companies or individuals. It's usually I fell victim to something that looked legitimate. And so a phishing scam would be when someone posing as somebody else, FedEx or the United States Postal Service is a common one. They send you a text or an email saying, you missed your package delivery, sign in here to get access to it. And you end up actually giving the fraudster your own personal information.
In terms of being vigilant against this, how do people start to protect themselves?
Quite honestly, it's so prevalent these days that my general feeling is that you have to treat every phone call, every text message, every email you receive on a day-to-day basis as though it is a phishing attempt. And until you're able to prove otherwise by calling that person at their note address, by looking up your bank's contact information rather than trusting that it's actually somebody from that bank, you have to assume that it is a fraudster, it is a scammer trying to get access to your information, and be vigilant and suspicious.
Our guide is titled The 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and it details phishing scams and a host of other ones. You can request it by calling 800-393-4001. The guide has information to help you make more informed decisions to protect yourself and can be requested by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Text us at 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we are covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, trivia question today was, which college did Caitlin Clark play basketball for? That would be Iowa. Caitlin Clark spent 4 years at the University of Iowa before being selected with the number 1 overall pick in the WNBA draft last year. George from Waltham, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
So, Jamie Dimon out in Davos and doing his thing out there. And Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, gets interviewed on, a wide variety of topics whenever he goes to these things because, look, JP Morgan Chase has great insight into what's going on with the U.S. and world financial system. They have so many customers and clients that they see just about everything. They're huge. And Dimon has been there. It's got to be like close to 20 years now, I think.
Yeah, he's through the financial crisis, so that puts him at 15 plus. So it's got to be close to 20. He's one of the longest tenured CEOs in the financial sector out there. It's probably him and Moynihan, I would think, is the longest.
Did Moynihan he came on in like 2010, right?
He's post Countrywide and all all the issues with Bank of America.
Who's the guy beforehand?
Ken
Angelo,
Lewis.
No, the guy. It was Angelo, whatever his name was. The guy from Countrywide took over.
Right.
What was his name?
Let's see. Ken Lewis, let's see. He was one, but maybe...
Angelo Mazzillo.
Yeah. Was he...
So
was
he was
after
Oh, no,
Ken
sorry.
Lewis?
He was just the Countrywide CEO. He was the Countrywide CEO when they got sold to Bank of America to try to save it, and it still ended up blowing up the financial system. So there's that. Anyways, so Jamie Dimon, they asked him, hey, what's going on with, the stock market and so on. He says, quote, asset prices are kind of inflated by any measure. They're in the top 10 or 15% of historical valuations. So yeah, they're elevated, and you need fairly good outcomes to justify those prices. Having pro-growth strategies helps make that happen, but there are negatives out there, and they can tend to surprise you. And he goes on to say, I have a little bit of caution about a bunch of subjects. What I'm a little cautious about is the deficit spending. It's a global one, not just an American issue. And the related question, will inflation go away? I'm not so sure. So, he's got a few things out there. Dimon, again, even though they see a lot of stuff and, sometimes he has strong opinions on it, he's not always right. So this is one thing that I come back to. He's the one who he's one of the people back in the fall of 2022 thought recession was imminent and that there was going to be, I think he said, there's a hurricane coming. And it ultimately didn't materialize. So I think that this is something where you take what he says with, again, a grain of salt, but it's always interesting just to hear his view, even if he's not always right, just because even if he's not right, he's still pretty well informed about what's going on, and he sees just a ton of stuff coming across his desk, and so I think that's kind of valuable.
Yeah, he's, one of the best financial executives you've probably had of the last, I looked back, he's close to 20 years as CEO of JP Morgan, so he's had a really long tenure, being extremely successful with the company, so you absolutely value his opinion, and he is extremely well informed on what's going on in markets, and he's not wrong that markets are very pricey. However you look at it from a metric perspective, there are probably more risks out there than there are positives cases for the market going forward. So all taken into consideration.
Now, Dimon also was asked during his interview with CNBC, he was asked about his thoughts on Bitcoin. And it's these moments that I really do like Jamie Dimon, because he's been really consistent on this, at least. A lot of the other bank executives now are, Moynihan was interviewed the other day, and they asked him about crypto, and he's like, yeah, we'd love to get into crypto payments if it's deemed, legal or whatever, just chomping at the bit to try to get, whatever they can there. Dimon asked about Bitcoin on CNBC. I'm not talking about Bitcoin. You guys talk about it plenty, just like you used to talk about AOL all the time. It's ooh, that's a good one right there. I like that, I do have to say. So occasionally he comes through with something like that, and that's kind of nice to see, I guess. So there's that.
The calendar has turned and the cold is here to stay, so now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a minimum 5-night stay with any participating hotel before June 30th. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visit usvi.com and code VIBE2025.
The rich and famous don't fear a stock market bubble. That's why you should, is the headline from Market Watch. And it's kind of a horrible headline, quite honestly. Like, okay, so are there, scientific studies showing that when the people who attend Davos are bullish that the market goes down? No, there are no such things. Instead, you have a piece here that says, hey, like, how highly valued are stocks relative to their historical averages? And it makes the point, yeah, like, stocks are, as Jamie Dimon just said, pretty much near the top of historical valuations as far as things like PE ratio, dividend yield, price to sales ratio, something called the Q ratio. Have either of you ever, what the heck is the Q ratio?
Just how good the market looks.
No, Q, not cute.
It is a financial ratio that compares the company's market value to its replacement cost.
What does that even mean? What's the replacement cost of Apple? What does that mean? What's the replacement cost of TikTok?
Measures whether a firm or aggregate market is relatively over or undervalued.
I've never heard of the Q ratio. Now, maybe that's
I don't know how you
reflection
determine
on me.
the replacement value.
Maybe that's a reflection on me. Okay, that's fine. You can only know so much about so much, but never even heard of that. Again, it goes through all these things and basically says, yes, this market's overvalued. We've known about this. This market has been overvalued for a little while now. And valuation is a horrible timing metric. Back in 1997, Alan Greenspan, then chair of the Federal Reserve, gave his famous speech talking about the market's irrational exuberance. Market didn't peak for the next 3 years. We got all the way through 97, 98, 99, even part of 2000 before things finally said, yeah, we're going to roll over for good. And I'm not sitting here telling you, oh, like you should be all bullish and everything. No, but much more, hey, just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's inherently going to get cheaper immediately. And in fact, it might continue to go up in price before it finally corrects. You have no idea just based on whether something is expensive or not. One of my favorite lines, the opposite's true also, by the way. One of my favorite lines in investing, Paul, you've probably heard this a million times, so I'm sorry. How does a stock lose 75%? Well, it loses 50%, and then it loses 50% again. So you lose that first 50%, you're like, oh, this is cheap. And then it goes down another 50, and you're like, oh, like this is cheaper. And then just because something has moved in one direction does not inherently mean that it's going to move in the other, at any particular point in time. So, yes, this is an expensive market. It is something where the historical comps are starting to get a little bit nutty, but that doesn't mean it can't get nuttier. And so if you make your investment decisions based on this Market Watch piece by Mark Hulbert, are you going to be eagerly waiting for Mark's next piece saying when it's time to buy? What if he doesn't publish that? What if he just doesn't write it for some reason? So I always, these pieces always bother me a little bit. And again, I just think there's someone out there who probably read this and is like, oh, gee, this is a bubble and I need to sell everything. And maybe they're right. Maybe, like, this is the top. But this is a horrible way to make that decision by reading this piece.
And tying it to people attending Davos.
Yes. Who cares what they think? Like, they're not super geniuses. There are plenty of billionaires that lost a lot of money in the financial crisis because they were, like, completely wrong. there are plenty of them that made a bunch of money in the last few years because they were right about the market running up. So, I don't know, like, no one's right or wrong all the time, and who cares what the people at Davos think about what the market's doing? Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Stack Roulette.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
With digital technology continuously evolving, hackers are coming up with incredibly elaborate schemes to commit fraud, which could put your financial well-being at risk. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and in today's landscape, it's critically important that you beware of the potential dangers that exist. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and its purpose is to help you understand what steps you can take to avoid becoming a victim. Whether it's identity theft, inheritance scams, or Ponzi schemes, this guide can educate you about these risks, giving you the chance to make any necessary changes to your overall financial strategy. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That number once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
This is Tucker Silva, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And we're talking about last-minute nursing home lessons that can help save your assets. What can be done last minute to save your home and your liquid assets when one spouse is entering the nursing home?
So with a married couple, you do have more options than as a single person, but with a married couple, your home is not at risk because the community spouse living in the home is allowed to keep the home. Doesn't matter the value, as long as they're living there, it's not countable and non-lienable. They also give the healthy spouse about $135,000 to keep. It's not a lot when you think of the big picture, but all the rest of the money would be at risk. But at least a quick last-minute way of protecting all those other dollars, all over and above that $135,000, would be to basically transfer the assets, those excess assets, to the community spouse, which, by the way, is not a disqualifying transfer, so no 5-year waiting period. And then once that community spouse gets those assets, depending on their age, they can buy what is known as a Medicaid qualifying annuity. These are special annuities. They convert the excess assets into an income stream, and then it's no longer an asset keeping the community spouse over assets. Then the community spouse and the sick spouse are under assets, and they're eligible for Medicaid.
Cushing & Dolan has written a brand new guide, especially for those of you who have put off doing your planning and are now faced with a last-minute nursing home situation. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. 866-848-5699. Or if you prefer, you can simply go to their website, legalexchangeshow.com, and request it there.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. By making a donation, you can support the Veteran Advancement Program, which offers permanent and transitional affordable housing to veterans and their dependents. The DAV of Massachusetts is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single vets and those with families. Visit dav5k.boston to make a donation today. And make note for this year's 5K to be held on Saturday, November 8th. That's dav5k.boston.
Paul, what do you got for me for Stack Roulette?
Bonds used to make sense for your portfolio, but does perhaps cash look to be the better option? As a piece that was covered in Barron's, and also a follow-up piece in a similar vein. Bonds had their worst decade in 90 years. What we've seen over the course of the last several years is a very low interest rate environment in COVID in 2020 and 2021, where you had the U.S. 10-year Treasury, I believe, as low as 0.75%. Now we sit with the U.S. 10-year Treasury at 4.6 or 4.7%. As a result, anyone who held long-term bonds really was beaten up significantly, particularly in 2022, versus cash, which has increased very significantly over the course of the last couple of years. Ultimately, the way that we look at this from a portfolio perspective, bonds are typically, supposed to be a means of safety. They're supposed to have less deviation in terms of the returns that they provide. But the idea of it being, an optimal time to buy into bonds now, just because they've been beaten up before, it echoes the sentiment that we were going through before, prior to the break, with this idea that you never know what the right time is to buy into the markets, whether they could look cheap but could only fall further, and the same thing on the upside front in terms of the expense. The same thing applies if you're trying to make an interest rate bet on long-term rates. You just never know, really. It's all about building an allocation that you as a client or investor can feel comfortable with.
I think also it's important to remember that, look, it's not something where, even in a very favorable period for bonds, the 1980s through 2020, it's not like they were just a slam dunk to make money all the time. These are the annual returns for bonds since 1980. This is the Bloomberg Aggregate Bond Index. 2.71, 6.25. Okay, those seem like bond-like returns. 1982, 32.62%. Remember, you're getting like a 15% yield, plus yields came down, so you just made a ton. 8.35, 15.15, 22.1, 15.26. Yeah, you're probably not going to see returns like that ever again in bonds. Like, it's like 4 out of 5 years north of 15%. It's insane. Like, okay, like, yeah, that's not realistic. But then you start to continue to go on. You get to the 90s in particular. 8.96, 16%, 7.4, 9.75, minus 2.92, 18.46, 3.64, 9.64, 8.7, minus 0.82. So the 90s had 2 years where you lost money on bonds. Like, it was just, kind of how it was then. The 2000s, very stable. Aside from kind of the tech bubble where yields were higher, 3.63, 4.10, 2, 4.12, 6.97, 5.24, 5.93. Like, very consistent. But that's kind of the outlier. Aside from that, you're kind of all over the place. And I think this is the thing to remember about bonds is, yeah, they do have some gravity in that you have a yield that's pulling you towards, where, you're going to eventually end up. But bonds they're not designed to just make you the same return each year. Like, the prices will and do fluctuate, and that is something that is normal. They're supposed to fluctuate less than the overall stock market, but it doesn't mean that they never move. And I think there's sometimes that misconception about that, and that's just not true based on what we've seen historically.
Was it down 14% in 22? What's 22, 23, 24?
I can pull them. The site I was reading stopped in 21.
Oh, okay.
It was down somewhere in 14 or 15,
yeah.
yeah. And then the last couple years,
it's been hard to recover that. I mean, because it's been a couple percent. I believe it was 2% last year for 24 on the bond index, and I forget on 23, but it was very minimal for 23
modest,
as well.
Low single digits somewhere in that ballpark. So yeah, it's something where you have the potential for some downside on bonds, quite honestly, but they also tend to be, to a certain extent, and again, it depends what kind of longer-term secular trend that you're in based on, kind of where yields were starting and things like that. But in this economy, you kind of feel, okay, there's somewhat self-correcting in that if yields go too high, it's going to slow the economy too much. And so that tends to bring yields back down then, which might speed it up, which pushes them up. So, again, it's just something to understand about how bonds actually work, where the prices do move around. They don't just stay in the same place forever. And you've got to understand where they fit as part of your overall portfolio. I want to talk about this story. I saw this one last week. The Olympic medals from Paris, they are tarnishing, apparently, already, which the Paris Olympics, if correct, they were 6 months ago, right?
Yes. Was it that?
Like July,
Yeah,
somewhere in that range. July, August, I don't know, somewhere in that
July
ballpark.
26th through August 11th of last
That
year.
feels like a while ago.
6 months ago. And apparently the medals are starting to deteriorate. In fact, a U.S. Olympic fencer said his bronze medal started deteriorating a few days after the Olympics, and within a few weeks it was more noticeable. And it's something where it appears to be that the biggest problem is with the bronze medals. So, hey, you medal in the Olympics. I mean, you're one of the 3 best people on the planet at whatever you do. And they give you this thing that's falling apart in a few... I mean, not like completely falling apart, but it doesn't last a few days before it starts tarnishing. Like, what are we actually doing here? And they were, showing off these medals and like, oh, we spent so much time designing them and this and that. And look, don't get me wrong. Like, trying to make bronze is not exactly easy. It's not like something that... No, the 3 of us sitting in this room could not make a bronze medal that didn't tarnish the day we made it. Like, you don't just... It doesn't just happen. But the fact is, you made these for the Olympics, and you'd hope that they were a little bit higher quality. So LVMH is the company that made them, Louis Vuitton, and they're facing some criticism because, hey, make your Olympic medals better. Like, what are we really doing here?
This happened in 2016, too, with the Rio Games. There was also some issues with the medals, so get those medals in line.
That's what you got to do. Anyways, markets are in positive territory. Dow's up 137, S&P's up 49, NASDAQ up 288. We're done for the day. Back tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.